I lied in that meeting before I even opened my mouth. Not about the numbers, not about the project, about myself. I sat there in my cheap navy suit, badge crooked, pretending to be just another junior analyst who only spoke English, the kind you can talk around, talk over, talk about, right in front of his face. The truth is, I've spoken French almost as long as I've spoken English. My grandmother raised me on it. But that morning, in that glass-walled conference room on the 12th floor, I kept my accent locked behind my teeth and let everyone believe I was clueless. If you're going to judge what I did next, at least hear the whole thing. Decide at the end whether I was wrong. It was a Tuesday, the kind that already feels like a punishment. Gray sky, stale hallway air, the buzzing of the fluorescent light above my desk that no one ever fixed. The email came at out of 7 a.m. Evan, you'll sit in on the Cormier review with us at 10. Bring the updated risk model. Daniel. Cormier was our big European client, the one everyone pretended not to be afraid of. 2 of their senior people were flying in from Paris to align expectations. In corporate, that's code for someone's about to get blamed. I read the email twice, then opened the attachment list. They had included my deck, my model, my notes. No one had asked me to present. I was just there to support, which usually means be present when we throw you under the bus so you can't say you didn't know. At 9:30, I was in the small kitchen stirring burnt coffee when my manager, Daniel, walked in. Perfect haircut, perfect shirt, permanent Bluetooth earpiece like an extra organ. You ready? He asked, not really looking at me. Yeah, I checked the numbers again this morning, I said. Good, he replied. Just answer if you're asked. Otherwise, let me and Karen handle it, okay? There was a tone under that okay that wasn't a question. I nodded. He hesitated. Oh, and just so you're aware, Cormier's sending 2 of their heavy hitters, Laurent and Sophie. They're direct. Don't take anything personally. Direct. I pocketed that word and followed him out. The conference room was all glass and echo. Those rooms are designed to make you feel small. Karen was already there, arranging printouts, like she was setting a table. She gave me a tight smile. Sit by the screen, Evan. You'll handle the model if they want to drill down, she said. I took my spot, laptop open, heart doing a slow drumbeat. The city moved below us, unaware that my entire career might get decided in the next hour by people who'd forget my name by lunch. Laurent and Sophie walked in at 10:03, right on schedule. Laurent was tall, late 40s, the kind of man who wore a simple watch that cost more than my car. Sophie had a sharp bob and the posture of someone who has never once apologized for taking up space. Black folders, black tablet, black eyes that scanned the room and filed us by importance. We did the introductions in English, handshakes, practiced smiles. Thank you for coming, Daniel said. We really appreciate you making the trip. Of course, Laurent replied. His English was smooth, almost accentless. This project is very important for us. They sat opposite us. The big screen behind me showed the first slide of my deck with our logo and theirs side by side like we were on equal footing. We weren't. The first 15 minutes were all pleasantries and status updates. Karen walked through the timeline. Daniel talked about resourcing and unexpected challenges. Laurent nodded. Sophie took notes. It was all noise I'd heard before. Then somewhere around slide 7, something shifted. Daniel mentioned a variance, slight cost, overrun on the European segment. Currently under review. Laurent's jaw tightened by maybe 0.5 millimeter. He glanced at Sophie, and then they switched. C'est ce que je craignais, Laurent murmured, almost under his breath. That's what I was afraid of. My chest went cold, but my face stayed blank. I kept my eyes on the spreadsheet as if I was following the English discussion. Sophie didn't even look up. On va dire que ça vient de lui, she said, pen tapping. Le petit. Il ne comprend rien de toute façon. We'll say it came from him. The kid. He doesn't understand anything anyway. She flicked her eyes toward me for half a second. I must have looked exactly how she expected. Slightly tense, slightly eager, completely ignorant. Karen was still talking, oblivious. Daniel nodded along, happy to have noise filling the room. Laurent exhaled slowly. Il a fait les modèles? He did the models? Oui, Sophie answered. On dira que c'est son erreur de projection. Daniel pourra confirmer. Si ça explose, ce sera sur lui. Yes. We'll say it's his forecasting error. Daniel can confirm. If it blows up, it'll be on him. My hand tightened around the wireless mouse. The cursor on the screen shook for a second, just enough that I hoped no one noticed. They kept going. On ne peut pas admettre que ça vient de nous, Laurent added calmly. Pas avec le conseil déjà nerveux. Un analyste qu'on sacrifie, c'est rien. We can't admit it came from us, not with the board already nervous. Sacrificing one analyst is nothing. I felt my heartbeat between my teeth. Daniel was sitting right there, and he didn't flinch. He just adjusted his cufflink. Sophie's mouth curved. Et regarde-le. On lui donne une lettre de recommandation et il disparaît. Problème réglé. Look at him. We give him a reference letter, and he disappears. Problem solved. She smiled politely at me in English. Can you go to the next slide, please? Sure, I said, my voice steady. I clicked. The graph changed. My life did too. For the next 20 minutes, the meeting ran on 2 tracks. On the surface, English. Questions about assumptions, timelines, deliverables. Underneath, French. A cold conversation about how, when this thing went public and the numbers looked worse, they'd point at me and close ranks. Il signe les docs? Laurent asked at one point. Will he sign the documents? On peut simplifier le process, Sophie replied. We can simplify the process. By simplify, she meant remove herself and Laurent from any signatures that mattered and route them through Daniel and, where possible, me. One email, one forwarded form, one, can you just formalize this, Evan? And my name would be the one under the bad forecast. I answered their questions in English. I pointed to cells, explained formulas, justified assumptions. Every time I opened my mouth, I had to push down the urge to answer in their language, to shove their own sentences back at them. But that was just the surface. Underneath, something else was happening. I felt the moment I stopped being harmless in that room. Not to them, they still thought I was background, but to myself. There's a point where you hear what people are willing to do to you when they think you're deaf, and you can't unhear it. The meeting finally ended with handshakes and thanks, and a fake promise to stay aligned. Laurent squeezed my hand and gave me that corporate half-smile. Good work on the model, he said in English. Then quieter, almost like a habit, in French. Profitez bien tant que tu es là. Enjoy it while you're still here. I let go of his hand. Thank you, I replied, still in English. They left with Daniel and Karen walking them to the elevators, all smiles and small talk. I stayed behind in the empty conference room, the air suddenly too quiet. The city was still moving below, cars the size of toys, people who would never know my name or what had just been decided about my life in a language I wasn't supposed to understand. I closed my laptop, slowly, like any sudden movement might break whatever thin control I had left. My reflection in the glass looked tired and a little older than yesterday. They think I don't understand a word, I said out loud to no one. And that's when I knew 2 things. 1, if I did nothing, I was already finished. And 2, the fact that they didn't know about my French was the only advantage I had. The morning after that meeting felt wrong before I even opened my eyes. The kind of wrong you don't see yet, but you can hear in how quiet the apartment is, in how heavy your phone feels in your hand, in the way your name shows up in emails that suddenly sound too formal. I kept replaying yesterday in my head. Their voices, their certainty, their plan to ruin me like I was a paper cup they could just crush and toss. But the real problem wasn't that they wanted to blame me. It was how calm they were about it, how rehearsed, how ordinary it felt to them. And I had to go back into the office knowing they believed I hadn't understood a single word. My badge beeped at 8:54 a.m. The lobby smelled like lemon cleaner and cold air, the same as every day but somehow sharper. I headed to my desk, pretending nothing was wrong, pretending I wasn't counting every step like I was walking into a minefield. Daniel wasn't in yet. Karen was. She walked past me with a stack of printouts, eyes straight ahead. "Morning," I said. Nothing, not even a nod. She just kept moving. That was new. I opened my laptop. The screen lit up with 3 calendar invites. Quick sync, forecast adjustments, internal alignment meeting, document finalization, urgent. All from Daniel. All with me added last. All without explanations. I clicked into the files attached. One of them was a revised cost analysis sheet I'd never seen before. Numbers I hadn't written. Assumptions I hadn't made. Formulas I hadn't touched. At the bottom, the signature line, was mine. A chill ran down the inside of my spine. They weren't planning to pin the mistake on me. They had already started. At 9:12, Daniel walked in, tossing his jacket on his chair like a man who owned the floor he stepped on. "Evan," he said, tapping my monitor, "review what I sent and sign off before lunch." He didn't wait for a reply, didn't look at me twice, just moved on. I watched him walk away and felt my jaw tighten. He knew exactly what was happening. He was part of it. By noon, the office felt smaller, like the walls were listening. I walked into the kitchen to get water, and the conversation at the counter died the second I entered. 2 senior analysts stared at their coffee like it suddenly mattered. A third shifted awkwardly. One of them muttered, "Poor guy doesn't even know." Didn't know what? Didn't know the board was already asking questions? Didn't know Cormier had flagged internal inconsistencies? Didn't know someone had quietly floated my name as the analyst responsible for projections? Or didn't know I could understand every French word they'd used to carve me open yesterday? I went back to my desk and opened the internal risk database. I cross-checked timestamps, owners, digital trails. There it was. A whole set of modified entries. Entries changed by someone logged in as admin. Someone had gone through and subtly rewritten sections of the model. Enough to alter context. Just enough to make me look sloppy. Not enough to trigger suspicion. It was professional sabotage. And it was happening fast. At 1:47 p.m., Karen appeared at my desk, expression stiff. "We need to talk," she said quietly. War Room 2. War Room 2 was the smallest conference room. No windows, no glass walls. Just beige drywall and a single humming vent. The kind of place bad news goes to grow teeth. I stepped inside. She closed the door behind us. Her voice dropped. "Evan, I don't know what's going on, but Daniel wants you to take responsibility for the projections if Cormier escalates." "So he wants me to lie," I said. She flinched. "He wants you to maintain consistency?" His words. I stared at her. "And you're okay with that?" Her mouth pressed into a thin line. "I'm not okay with anything right now." She hesitated, then said something that unsettled me more than everything I'd heard in French. "Just keep your head down. Don't make noise. If you fight this, it'll only get worse." "So I'm supposed to let myself get hit?" I asked. Her eyes flicked to the floor. "It's better than what happens if Laurent gets angry." I leaned back. "You're afraid of him." She didn't deny it. She just said quietly, "We're all disposable." Then she left. I sat there alone for 5 full minutes. Disposable. The word echoed around the walls. They thought I didn't understand French. They thought I didn't know what they were planning. They thought I'd panic, fold, sign, and disappear. They thought wrong, because the more they pushed me, the calmer I became. Not numb, not broken, just precise. That kind of calm only comes when something inside finally clicks into place. And something did. Hard. Because while I was digging through the database earlier, I'd found something they didn't realize I could read. A file buried in a cluster of archived revisions. A set of earlier forecasts. Numbers that didn't add up, worse than ours. And the names attached to them, not mine. Theirs. I scrolled through the lines again. The evidence was all there. Time-stamped. Traceable. Undeniable. And they had no idea I'd seen it. I closed the window slowly. breathing evenly. That should have scared me. It didn't. It focused me. But that was just the beginning, because that buried file, it wasn't just a mistake. It was a signature. Their signature. And soon they were going to learn that the quiet junior analyst who doesn't understand French had just become the one person in the building they shouldn't have underestimated. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was scared. Fear had burned off hours earlier, but because my mind wouldn't stop moving. Every piece of information had a place now. Every conversation, every glance, every French sentence they thought slid past me like smoke. By morning, I wasn't the same person who'd walked into that meeting 2 days ago. Something in me had hardened, sharpened, not anger, not revenge, clarity. I walked into the office at 7:02 a.m., earlier than anyone except the cleaning staff. The lights were still dim, the floor quiet except for the hum of the elevators resting on idle. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up the archived file again. The one with their real projections. The one they'd buried. The one they didn't know I could read. The numbers were catastrophic. Not minor adjustment bad. Not, oops, we miscalculated bad. No, these were the kind of forecasts that could collapse a partnership, sink a department, make a company's board ask who needed to be replaced, and the initials on every revision, LDSM Laurent and Sophie. They hadn't just made a mistake. They'd tried to erase it, and then they'd tried to erase me. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. I downloaded the full revision history to an external drive, not trusting the cloud, not trusting the internal servers, not trusting anything controlled by people who smiled as they planned my professional funeral. When I heard the first voices at 8:01, I shut everything down and switched to a neutral spreadsheet, a harmless face, a quiet analyst, for now. By mid-morning, the office was buzzing. I wasn't imagining it. People were acting different. Eyes lingered too long. Whispered conversations stopped when I walked by. Slack notifications popped up in channels I wasn't part of, but people didn't mute their mics fast enough. Something was happening. At 10:12, Daniel stormed into the office, red in the face, phone glued to his ear. "No, I understand," he was saying. "We'll handle it internally. Just give us until the joint review next week." Next week, joint review. This was the first I'd heard of it. He hung up, exhaled sharply, loosened his tie. When he saw me, he hesitated, just a fraction, but long enough to confirm exactly what I suspected. He wasn't worried about me. He was worried about himself. "Evan," he said, trying for casual. "Got a minute?" A question with the force of an order. He led me to a small huddle room, closed the door, and dropped into a chair. "Look, the Cormier team wants tighter alignment before the board session next Thursday. Laurent asked for you to attend the joint presentation. Your model needs to be the one on display." My stomach tightened, but not from fear. An invitation into the lion's den was exactly the opening I needed. "What do you need from me?" I asked. A flicker of relief crossed his face. He'd expected pushback. "Just cooperate," he said. "We all need this to go smoothly." "Smoothly as in?" I asked. He cleared his throat. "You signed the adjusted forecast. They'll handle the rest." I stared at him for a long moment. "Daniel," I said quietly, "do you actually believe this is my mistake?" He looked away. That was my answer. He wasn't choosing sides. He was choosing self-preservation. "We're done here," I told him, standing. He blinked. "Excuse me." "I'll see you at the joint review." I didn't wait for a response. The next few days were a balancing act, keeping my head down while pulling every thread I could find. I dug through mass archived emails, message logs, version histories, meeting notes hidden in subfolders. What emerged was a pattern, months of subtle manipulation, strategic omissions, and quiet blame shifting, all aimed in the same direction. Protect Laurent and Sophie. Protect their numbers. Protect the image of a flawless partnership, and sacrifice anyone beneath them. Me, Karen, even Daniel if it came to that. But they had one weak point: secrecy. They were counting on no one knowing French, no one listening. They had no idea I'd heard every word. On Wednesday afternoon, 4 days before the joint review, I passed the big conference room and stopped. Voices inside: Laurent, Sophie, and Daniel. The door was cracked just enough. Laurent's voice: Tu es sûr qu'il signera? You're sure he'll sign? Daniel: He's compliant. He won't make noise. Sophie: Il a l'air nerveux. Les nerfs font les gens bavards. He looks nervous. Nervous people talk. Laurent: S'il parle, on le détruit. If he talks, we destroy him. A pause. Then Sophie whispered something that genuinely chilled me. Ou on le fait passer pour incompétent. C'est plus propre. Or we make him look incompetent. It's cleaner. I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't let a single emotion show on my face. Because I didn't feel fear, I felt confirmation. I was right to prepare, right to collect evidence, right to wait, and the joint meeting. Next Thursday, it wasn't a threat. It was an opportunity. A stage. The first time we would all be in one room at one table with one screen. Them, our executives, their board, and me. The quiet analysts they thought spoke only one language. That night, long after the office emptied and the city lights blurred against the windows, I sat alone at my desk with the external drive plugged in. Everything I'd need next week was inside that folder. Proof of their manipulated data. Proof of their deleted revisions. Proof of their bad forecasts. Proof of every attempt to rewrite history with my name at the bottom. I stared at the file list, calm and steady. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't spite. This wasn't anger. It was correction. And then silence. The kind that means something's gone wrong. My phone lit up with a calendar update. Joint review, Thursday, 9 a.m. Presenter, Evan. Presenter, me. Not Daniel. Not Karen. Me. They had just handed me the microphone, and they had no idea what I was about to say into it. The morning of the joint review felt nothing like the day of the first meeting. Back then, I was walking into a room full of people who thought I was harmless. Today, I walked in knowing exactly what I was about to do, and exactly how clean it needed to be. No drama, no speeches, no shouting, just precision. The room was already half full when I arrived, executives from our side, a few board members, Cormier's directors settling in with their espresso cups, laptops waking up. The screen at the front displayed the title, Slide, Quarterly Forecast Alignment, Presenter, Evan Thorne. The same slide Daniel had tried to smile away when he passed me earlier, but I didn't give him the courtesy of a look. Laurent and Sophie walked in last, confident, polished, certain of the performance about to unfold. For a moment, I watched them the way you watch actors step onto a stage right before the script changes in their hands. Laurent nodded at me. Sophie didn't bother with eye contact. Fine. The meeting began with introductions, a few formalities, the usual corporate choreography. Then Daniel cleared his throat. And now Evan will walk us through the updated projection model. I stood, plugged in my laptop, and felt the room settle into silence. Slide 1, Slide 2. Neutral numbers. Basic updates. Nothing dangerous yet. I spoke calmly, steadily. I saw nods around the table, some polite, some actually interested. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't shake. And then when I reached the slide titled Variance Analysis, I stopped clicking. I didn't look at the screen. I looked at Laurent, then Sophie. And before anyone could speak, I switched languages. Avant de continuer, I said in flawless, unhurried French, je voudrais clarifier quelque chose. Before we continue, I'd like to clarify something. The temperature in the room dropped. Sophie's pen froze mid-air. Laurent's head snapped up like he'd heard a gunshot. Daniel went rigid beside me. I kept going. Depuis la réunion de la semaine dernière, il y a eu des incohérences dans les fichiers partagés avec notre équipe. Since last week's meeting, there have been inconsistencies in the files shared with our team. I clicked to the next slide. The header read, Revision History Overview. Internal and external contributions. Below it were the timestamps, usernames, version paths, all of them, including the archived forecasts, including the deleted ones, including the ones with their initials on every failed revision. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't smile. I didn't look triumphant. Just factual. This section, I continued in French, montre les révisions originales, soumises par votre équipe, celles qui ont été ensuite supprimées, remplacées, puis imputées à notre analyste, shows the original revisions submitted by your team, those that were later deleted, replaced, and then attributed to our analyst. Not me. Our analyst, I wasn't giving them the satisfaction of personalization. This wasn't about feelings. It was about facts. Around the table, jaws tightened. Papers rustled. Someone muttered, "Jesus Christ." Laurent opened his mouth. "Sit." I didn't let him finish. "Avant que vous niez quoi que ce soit," I said evenly, "voici l'historique complet des modifications, récupérées du serveur interne. Before you deny anything, here is the full edit history, recovered from the internal server." I clicked again, the screen filled with proof of their manipulation, side-by-side comparisons, automatic backups, metadata trails. Laurent's face drained of color. Sophie stared at the table like she was trying to disappear into it. I switched back to English, addressing the room, not them. As you can see, the inconsistencies did not originate from our team. The error was introduced off-site, revised multiple times, and then reassigned internally, in a way that didn't match the actual workflow. Silence. A deep, heavy corporate silence. The kind that carries consequences. Then one of the board members leaned forward. "Mr. Thorne, how long have you known about these discrepancies?" "Since the last cross-team meeting," I replied. I did not respond earlier because I wanted to verify everything before bringing it to this table. Karen stared at me like she'd never really seen me before. Daniel looked like he wanted to sink into the carpet. Laurent tried again. "This is a misinterpretation." I turned toward him, still calm. "In French, last week, you said, and I quote, 'On va dire que ça vient de lui.' We'll say it came from him." A few people gasped. Someone whispered, "He understood them?" Another whispered, "They talked about him in French?" I let the room absorb that. "I didn't respond at the time," I said, because I wanted the facts to speak louder than the assumptions. A woman from our legal team cleared her throat. "These documents, they're serious, and they're traceable." Laurent's jaw clenched. Sophie closed her laptop quietly. I didn't need to say another word. The board spoke for me. The meeting ended with formal statements, legal escalations, and a request for Cormier's team to step out, while the board reviewed the integrity concerns. Laurent walked out stiff. Sophie didn't look back. Daniel avoided my eyes entirely. When the door finally closed, our COO turned to me. "Evan," she said, "you handled yourself professionally today." I nodded once. "We'll need you to step into a senior role on this project, while we restructure the partnership." A promotion, just like that. Clean, quiet, official. I exhaled slowly. Understood. I left the building that afternoon with a folder under my arm and a strange, weightless calm in my chest. The sky above the city was clear. The wind was easy. For the first time in weeks, my thoughts weren't fighting each other for space. I passed the cafe where I usually grabbed coffee, the crosswalk where the signal always lagged, the bench where the people waited for the bus home. Everything looked the same. Nothing felt the same. Because I wasn't the quiet analyst they thought they could bury. I wasn't the easy scapegoat. I wasn't the kid who didn't understand French. I was the man who listened, and listened long enough to know exactly when to speak. When I reached the corner, my phone buzzed with a new email. I didn't need to open it to know who it was from. I just slid my phone into my pocket and kept walking. Peace doesn't announce itself. It doesn't fight. It doesn't shout. It just arrives when the noise finally stops. and for the first time in a long time, the noise was gone.